Welcome to this explainer. You know, for decades, the worlds of corporate compliance and social impact were treated like two completely separate universes, right? You made your money over here, and you did your charitable giving over there. Well, today we're unpacking a truly historic shift happening right now in India's regulatory landscape. The 2026 corporate law updates are completely modernizing corporate governance. They're actually merging regulated financial markets directly with social good. We're looking at a massive structural evolution in how companies operate, how they comply with the law, and how they actually give back to society.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with modernizing corporate governance, then move into the Corporate Laws Amendment Bill. After that, we'll dive into funding social impact via ZCZP instruments, check out the new CSR compliance rules, and finally wrap things up with accounting for social impact.
Let's jump right into Section 1, Modernizing Indian Corporate Governance. To really grasp these new rules, we've got to look at the overarching push by the government to simplify regulations across the board. The government's whole vibe right now can basically be summed up in one powerful phrase: ease of compliance. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has repeatedly highlighted that the goal here isn't just regulating for the sake of regulating. It's about proactively removing friction. They want to empower companies to operate smoothly and boost transparent social impact without burying everyone in endless counterproductive paperwork. It really is a fundamental shift from a purely punitive mindset to a supportive one. Moving right along to Section 2, the Corporate Laws Amendment Bill. This was recently tabled in the Lok Sabha and is currently being reviewed by a joint parliamentary committee.
Just look at the stark contrast here. Under the old system, minor corporate infractions could literally land executives in criminal courts facing actual jail time. The new proposed bill? It seeks to completely decriminalize those minor offenses. Instead of clogging up our already overburdened criminal courts, they're shifting toward internal administrative mechanisms and clear rules-based civil fines. Think about the massive amount of wasted time and legal fees this saves. Now, to be totally fair and objective here, critics have raised a valid point. They worry that removing the threat of criminal prosecution might accidentally create a weaker deterrent for bad behavior. But the main goal is definitely faster dispute resolution.
Plus, the bill proposes a massive change to mandatory corporate social responsibility, or CSR. Previously, if your company generated a net profit of 5 crores, you were mandated to contribute 2% of that to CSR. This new bill proposes doubling that threshold entirely up to 10 crores. Think about what this means if you're a mid-sized startup. It essentially exempts smaller companies from that mandatory contribution, saving them immense paperwork and huge compliance costs. More importantly, it frees up liquid capital for them to reinvest in their own growth.
Which brings us to Section 3, Funding Social Impact via ZCZP. So, what about the larger companies that still comfortably hit that new 10-crore threshold? Well, in May 2026, the MCA introduced a totally revolutionary route.
And this brings us to a really fascinating dilemma. If the overarching goal is the ease of doing business, how exactly do you ensure these massive pools of corporate social funds actually make a real, measurable difference without drowning companies in tedious impact assessments? And seriously, what on earth is a ZCCP? Everyone in the Indian corporate sector is suddenly talking about it. To answer that, we have to look at how the government is ingeniously pulling corporate donations directly onto the regulated stock market.
So ZCZP stands for Zero Coupon, Zero Principal. Simply put, it's a social donation bond. But unlike a traditional bond, the corporate donors know up front they will absolutely not get a single rupee of financial return. Zero interest paid, zero principal back at the end. Nada. So why would a company want a zero financial return bond? Because it's about pure, verifiable impact. What they get is a highly transparent social return on investment regulated directly by SEBI. And crucially, these instruments can only be issued by registered nonprofits actively trading on the new social stock exchange.
To make this a legally sound reality, the MCA amended Schedule VII of the Companies Act. By officially adding Item 13, they expressly recognize subscribing to these ZZCPs as a fully valid, legally binding CSR activity. Historically, stock exchanges have strictly been arenas for profit and capital gains, right? By building this official bridge between mandatory CSR and SEBI's social stock exchange, India is taking a monumental, globally unprecedented step toward institutionalizing philanthropy.
Let's dive into Section 4, the new CSR compliance rules, and see exactly how companies can use these ZCCPs day to day.
If you remember just one specific detail about these new rules, make it this number right here:
10%. The regulatory framework strictly caps this new investment route. Your company's spending on ZCZP instruments simply cannot exceed 10% of your total CSR budget for that financial year. Why? Because they want to ensure companies are actively diversifying their social outreach. It completely prevents a corporation from just dumping its entire philanthropic budget into one single financial instrument and calling it a day.
Now, there's a massive piece of compliance relief hidden right inside these rules. Companies subscribing to ZZCPs are entirely exempt from conducting the usual mandatory impact assessments for those funded projects. Think about the sheer amount of time and money saved there. Why are they exempt? Well, because the nonprofit issuing the bond is already heavily scrutinized and regulated by SEBI on the social stock exchange. Those rigorous SEBI disclosure mechanisms are doing all the heavy lifting for you, so you don't have to redundantly duplicate the effort.
But hey, accountability doesn't just disappear. While corporate donors get a well-deserved break on the paperwork, the nonprofits themselves are held to a super strict timeline. From the issue date of the ZCZP, the project absolutely cannot exceed 3 succeeding financial years. It's a powerful safeguard. It totally prevents vital funds from just sitting idle in bank accounts. The money either actively achieves its goal within 3 years, or the instrument gets delisted, and any unspent funds are immediately redirected to national funds like PM CARES or the Clean Ganga Fund.
Finally, Section 5, Accounting for Social Impact. Because let's face it, all of this incredible market innovation is pretty meaningless without rigorous ethical oversight.
The regulatory ecosystem is perfectly keeping pace here. The Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, or xiii, has proactively updated its Code of Ethics. The 13th edition now includes strict standards specifically for evaluating CSR and sustainability reporting. Volume 1 covers social impact assessments starting late 2025, and Volume 3 introduces sweeping ethics standards for sustainability assurance in April 2026. This is the anchor of the whole system. It ensures that the exciting new flexibility of ZZCPs is perfectly balanced by rock-solid ethical auditing.
So, tying it all together, we've seen how these 2026 updates are completely transforming the landscape. By decriminalizing minor offenses, raising profit thresholds to give startups some breathing room, and legitimizing social funding through SEBI-regulated exchanges, the government is fundamentally merging the efficiency of financial markets with the necessity of social good. The legal framework is built, the ethical standards are officially in place, which leaves us with one incredibly exciting question. How will you adapt your strategy to thrive in this totally new, transparently regulated landscape? Take some time to think about how your organization can leverage these tools. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.